Hey everyone, this is Mark Treichel with another episode of With Flying Colors. I'm excited today to be here with Jason Stverak, the Chief Advocacy Officer of the Defense Credit Union Council. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mark. Yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you back on. Had you on, I think 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
It's always great to catch up with, your take on what's going on in credit unions, your take on how DCUC is helping credit unions in general and all that. But in case someone hasn't listened to that or hasn't watched it on YouTube, could you kind of give a little bit of your background, a little bit of DCUC's background before we rock and roll into some dialogue?
Absolutely. For me, after about 10 years up on Capitol Hill in 2001, after working for Senator Kevin Cramer from North Dakota, handling the banking committee for him, I was blessed to go over and be the Deputy Chief Advocacy Officer over at CUNA. Worked for Ryan Donovan over there. And then through that process was elevated to interim Chief Advocacy Officer, went through the merger. And then I was honored to be asked to come over and be the Chief Advocacy Officer over at DCUC as I'm the first one that they've ever had, as they kind of saw a growing role for DCUC in terms of advocating for its member credit unions, but the entire credit union industry, and ensuring that there is a chorus full of voices that are ensuring that the best policies are enacted for DCUC. We're in our 63rd year. When we were created as a council under CUNA, we were primarily to represent credit unions that were just on military bases. But as they have grown beyond the installation to serve the community, to serve the state and serve the country that serves their installation, we've grown with them because there's very few issues that only impact just defense credit unions. And that's when you're dealing with the Department of War or other issues. Protecting your tax status is the same as whether you're on a Air Force base or not. Ensuring good, effective regulation is the same whether you're on an Army base or not. So we've kind of grown DCUC's voice in our activity to ensure that our members, but the entire industry is effectively advocated not only up on Capitol Hill, but working with our partners in the leagues, as well as our member institutions at state capitals across the country.
And just as an observation, I'll say that with the merger of NAFCU and America's Credit Unions, I think you kind of alluded to this, but that kind of created a void where there was one major. There are two of the biggest trade associations were merging, which put you in the second slot, right? Essentially, and them bringing you on is creating that opportunity for there to be the wisdom of crowds of two different organizations analyzing everything and making their members' needs brought to the powers that be to influence policy.
No, you're incredibly right. And where they have a strength in one area, we have a strength in another. The ability to represent those who serve, whether they be a veteran, active duty, first responders, etc. That opens every door up on Capitol Hill. So it's not just specific to committees of jurisdiction, House Financial Services, Senate Banking. We have the ability to represent our members in House Transportation and Infrastructure or Energy and Commerce on a myriad of issues as they come to the floor or as the issues that are impacting credit unions go to different committees throughout Congress and in the administration.
Great point. And I'm gonna dive into Interchange income in 1 second.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Ryan Donovan and working for him. He's been on the podcast a couple times. He's going to be joining the show here later in July. So listeners or watchers watch for that. And Jason, when Ryan's episode comes out, I'll shoot you a note so you can
Please do.
You can. I'm sure you're still in touch with him.
Yes.
He's doing a lot of good work over that.
Yep.
Association for the FHLB. So, all right, interchange income and I think I saw something about Massachusetts and some other states where there's some challenges facing credit unions. Could you kind of dip into that?
Absolutely. I'll start at the state level. Obviously, you referenced Massachusetts. They are taking a look at the issue. They've had, I think they've kind of been taking it the right way. They brought together a commission to study the issue. They've asked for input from retailers, from credit unions, from card companies, from processors. And next week will be their fourth hearing. I was honored to testify in the third hearing that they were having on the impact of modifying or changing interchange and its impact on defense credit unions and our ability to serve those members and their families. There likely will be some sort of, we'll call it a solution or a process moving forward that they'll take into the next session of the Massachusetts legislature. But this issue is going to be continually brought up across the country. You still have in Illinois where there is an interchange law that is passed, signed into law, but it has been delayed for another year, which would not allow interchange on tax and tips, as well as taxes on your final bill. That's in the courts right now. You've had a federal judge has ruled that, based upon the OCC coming out and talking about federal preemption, that the current law will not, and I kid you not, does not cover processors like or the interchange processors like MasterCard and Visa, federally chartered banks, other federally chartered savings institutions, but will cover federally chartered credit unions, state chartered credit unions, and state chartered banks. So that's why we're very thankful that the NCUA has moved very judiciously in terms of putting out an interim rule that the comment period just ended, I think earlier this week or the end of last week, where they'll have that same type of exemption for federally chartered credit unions. Hope is that the judge will then come back and put federally chartered credit unions in that same, where the law will not cover them, but that still does not change the fact that you would then putting at a competitive disadvantage state chartered banks and credit unions versus the federally chartered, cohorts. And the strength of the credit union movement always has been the dual charter system. So if we are going to put our thumb on the scale and say, hey, if you don't want to have this rule apply to you and all the extra paperwork and headaches, just change your charter. And so then you'll have fewer and fewer state charters across this country. And that's something that we've been raising as an issue in the multiple states that this keeps getting raised. And you saw it passed the legislature in Colorado, but the governor vetoed it. You've seen it introduced in a multitude of other states. It was in Puerto Rico as well. It hasn't moved more than just beyond Illinois, but you've seen Colorado pass it. Maybe the next governor will sign it into law. Don't know about that when the lobbying gets done. And as soon as you have one, then two, then four, then five, states passing this, you've got serious issues, because what you're essentially is creating is multiple interchange payment networks that you have to set up. So let's say you're a credit union in my home state of North Dakota, and you have someone who is flying through O'Hare, you need to make sure their card works there. Right. And which means you got to make sure you apply to their rules, or you got to go through Denver, or if you're going through, God forbid, it passes in Texas or something like that, you are forcing upon credit unions the need to, so that their members, which their number one concern is when you talk about debit and credit cards, is the ability to use it wherever they go. They don't care about the interchange rate. They just want to be able to use it. And if they're not able to use it, then you're going to have a problem because you're not providing them the service that they need. And I did have one CEO from the Midwest tell me, he says, if this law goes into effect in the state of Illinois, that they're just going to they're likely to send a note to the members and say, if you're going through Illinois, your card will not work. We're letting you know in advance, take extra cash. And I can understand why, because, it's a logistical nightmare. That's kind of where things are at sitting at the state level. Then you always have the continual fight under Marshall-Durbin here in Washington, D.C. It's really been quarantined, would be the polite way to say it. But we're always on the lookout for where they might try to push it. We have the NBAA in the Senate, which they'll try to move on this week or next. Marshall-Durbin usually introduced an amendment that would deal with interchange on base commissaries. They have not done that yet, or they'll try to do a floor amendment to try to add the full Marshall-Durbin in. We haven't seen that amendment introduced. or they'll try to attach it to some must pass piece of legislation. We think we're in a very good position with it, but we're not going to take our eye off the ball and then have it slip into a bill at 2 a.m. in the morning in the middle of December. So that's our worry and our concern, and that's why we're constantly educating members, their staff, on the negative impacts that would occur if you pass the Marshall-Durbin legislation.
Yeah, I think as you're saying, a letter to members saying your card won't work in Illinois, that's about as bad as advertising as Illinois could get, other than the fact that the Chicago Bears are moving to Indiana, right? So
Yeah, it's that is the negative impact. So yeah, I mean, if you're told that, hey, you can't use the form of payment that you're used to, if you go to even if you're just flying through O'Hare, you can't pick up a Giordano's or a Malnati's or some
right.
popcorn. It causes a lot of issues, and thankfully we've seen a lot of airlines and chambers of commerce seeing that as an issue and weighing in against against this legislation, both at the national level and at the state level.
That's good. I'm glad and raising it in every specter, like the airlines, America's credit unions, American Bank Association, this is where trade associations shine, right? Making people understand the unintended consequences of a law.
Absolutely, and that's where we come in with our expertise on the impact that would happen for members of the armed forces. Defense credit unions use Interchange to advance credit for those that may not have a good credit score. They're 18 years old. They're going through Camp Pendleton. You want to make sure that, hey, they've got a card, they've got $1,000 on it. They can fix the car. They can get groceries until the next payday. Or you're just saying, go to the payday loan lender right out the front gate, of which the military is preyed upon and has been preyed upon by them for decades. And if you take that ability for us to take a risk on those who choose to serve our country, it just does a disservice on our ability to help protect them. And you can take no greater look than Vice President Vance last year talked about, when he was at Quantico, talked about he was so proud that he was able to get a 25% car loan, and then his gunny sergeant was like, well, wait a minute here, 25%, you're getting ripped off, and took him down to Navy Federal and said, here's 6%. So they're saying, this 18-year-old kid who doesn't have a credit history, we have the resources to be able to say, you know what? We believe in you. We believe that you're a good credit risk, even if you don't have that three numbers, those three numbers to tell us just yet.
No, that's fantastic. A couple other things that I thought would be good to chat about today. The NCUA board, any thought? Have you heard anything about what's going on there? We've got Hauptman wanting to get over to his new job. We've got Cruz coming soon. He's had his hearing, I guess.
He did have his hearing.
And then the other two that are in limbo because they followed a follow-up lawsuit, right?
Yeah, well, we'll take those as separately.
Sure. Yeah, good.
So for John Cruz, I'm blessed. I knew John. We both worked together in the U.S. Senate together when we was
cool.
on both, on committee staff and member staff. Always found his door to always be open, willing to talk about issues. Now, he is in kind of the same wait and see situation that everybody else is. You have the Senate back for essentially 3 weeks before they go on their month-long break in August. It is our understanding that they're trying to put together a package of nominees from every committee and try to bring them to the floor for some sort of, hey, these are going to pass 60 or 70 to whatever number. Could we bring them all together in one vote? That will likely not be agreed to. So they'll have to process them one by one. Our hope is that Majority Leader Thune sees that we need to move the NCUA here at the top of that list. Because as you talked about Chairman Hauptman, August 1st is 1 year. He served 1 year past his term ending. And the Senate should be able to do its job to get that nominee done and confirmed and across the board. So our hope is that before they leave for their August recess on August 6th, that they've moved John Cruz to be the next director over at the NCUA. Gives him, a great amount of time to get over the work, put his fingerprint and stamp on the agency and begin moving forward. Now, in terms for Todd and Tanya, you had the Supreme Court at the end of its last term in the Slaughter case, come out with a ruling essentially giving the president, except for the Federal Reserve, almost unlimited power to fire, directors at independent agencies, of which the NCUA is one. It's my understanding that Todd and Tanya are moving forward with their court case, if I understand it correctly, as they are arguing that the Slaughter case is specific to Slaughter and the FTC, where she was a commissioner. And so we'll have to see how that all plays out. I don't think, if you kind of read the court's decision where they link in that argument will be successful, but I'm not a lawyer. I only try to play one on TV every once in a while. So, but that process is still out there, and you don't know until they rule that decision how it'll come out. So you could have, it's in this district circuit court here in BC, whatever that decision that makes, then they can appeal it up to the Supremes, and then the Supreme Court could say, we're going to hear it or we're not going to hear it. So it may be done before the end of the year or may stretch into next year. But if they can get John Cruz on there, then the board can get back to as much as normal moving forward as possible.
Yeah, and as former executive director of NCUA, as I'm thinking about that timeline, I'm thinking, get them in August, because the budget's coming up, right? You got that takes up a lot of bandwidth at NCUA. They've got to do a public budget briefing or hearing, whatever you want to call it. He's got to get assimilated to everything that's going on, and trying to get assimilated as a new board member and have to approve a budget next month is not the perfect scenario to get the optimal budget. So hopefully things move quicker as opposed to slower.
Yeah, we used to have a phrase up on the Hill. It's talking about building the airplane while you're flying it. You don't. That's not ideal.
Yeah,
we did a lot of that during COVID, and so I think that if you can get John in there, give them the month of August to get up to speed, get the staff up to speed, I think that will be beneficial.
Yeah, no doubt. I saw something on LinkedIn about Coast Guard funding that you had posted.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that when we had the government shutdowns, in October through November, and then the DHS shutdown, not a lot of people know that while the Coast Guard is considered part of the military, they become part of the DOW if there's a declared war. They're currently funded through the Department of Homeland Security. So as DHS was not funded for long periods of time, the Coast Guard was not getting paid at that same time as well. So we've been continually pushing that as they move forward, that in the next budgeting process, that they pass some sort of a requirement that for Coast Guard, active duty, members of the military, that they don't have to worry about their paychecks. If you are serving our country, if you are deployed, the last thing you need to worry about is if your direct deposit's going in. And because then you're worrying about things back home and start worrying about the plane that you're flying that may be going over Iran at this time and moment.
Yeah.
Thankfully, defense credit unions and the entire credit union industry stood up very tall when Congress wasn't able to get its job done. You had like Keesler Credit Union out of Mississippi, where they literally just told their members, okay, for the next 90 days, if every 2 weeks you're getting $3,800 as your take-home pay, you can count on that being there.
Nice.
They said, we will commit our reserves to make that happen. Now, that gets a little bit tricky, is if you are you're putting the paychecks in, and then you are saying, we're going to forego your mortgage payments, your credit card payments. So there's a dramatic decrease in money coming in, a dramatic increase in money going out, and then when the auditors come in and take a look, they say, hey, you got a little troublesome with your reserves at these points. And thankfully, the NCUA was very gracious in working with member credit unions as they were working through this process. So it's a Band-Aid, solution. The solution is keep them paid,
right,
and keep politics out of these issues. But thankfully, our men and women in the armed forces, the Coast Guard, our veterans, and as importantly, their families, had their assurance that money was going to be there. They could keep their, bills being paid, and to the point, where there were some gaps in that first shutdown, you had credit unions setting up food banks to make sure that members of the military and their family could have food. And it is troublesome, that we have members that are, enlisted members in the military who don't get, whose pay level is set so they also get food stamps.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that is a separate issue. We hope that Congress will begin to address as it deals with financial readiness for us is military readiness. And we hope that that we don't have to deal with this issue in the future. But we're thankful. We believe as they funded DHS to 2028, from our understanding, that covers Coast Guard. So we won't have to worry about them being left out of that solution if we go through a shutdown. And just putting a little bit of looking over the horizon, you have they haven't passed any of the spending bills yet, or signed into law. The government will run out of funding on September 30th at midnight. So if they don't pass a continuing resolution by then, we'll be in another government shutdown. And we've already begun prepping our defense credit unions and the entire industry and saying, whatever plan you have, dust it off, because you need to be ready. Because, middle of September, people are going to start asking, what do I do? What's my mortgage? How do I pay for my kids' college? You need to be able to say what programs you're going to have in place for them, because members of Congress will be looking for it, but we're continually pushing them to say, to get this thing done, get a CR, or if they get something particular that they deal with those who have committed to serve our country, that they are taken care of, even if there is no spending bills agreed to.
Boy, oh boy, a lot going on. That's for sure.
Yes, sir.
I also saw a post you did about Jackson area. I've done several Jackson area posts. I've done 2 Jackson area podcasts. And the essence, or part of the essence, I don't want to speak for you, but part of the essence, if I remember right, of your post was that the ABA and the bankers were trying to make a mountain out of a molehill for it happening in credit unions. You want to kind of expand on that or touch on anything related to that?
No, you're 100% right, Mark. I think that while nobody has been convicted yet, it is
Alleged, yes.
just alleged.
Yep.
Not out there. There are some incredibly serious issues that have been raised, and I think they need to be investigated. They need to be looked at. If governance needs to change, then we need to lead as an industry to police our own. If there needs to be more board training, if there needs to be more, internal checks or good practices, then we as an industry need to instill that within all of our member institutions. But what is disheartening to me is to see the moment that story got legs here in Washington and started to, get published, it was being sent by ICBA, ABA, the banking trades, directly into the inboxes of members of Congress and their staff saying, this is an example of the entire industry. We need hearings. We need to, they need to fill out a 990 form. I'm like, what would a 990 form uncover on any of these issues in Jackson? This shows the need. We need to tax them. And it's the tired kind of same argument that the banking trades have always used to try to cripple credit unions and to impact our tax status. And in the op-ed that you reference on that I posted on LinkedIn, we talk about the fact that, okay, here look at all the other issues with the banking industry that they didn't immediately come out and call, or we didn't, for increased FDIC regulation or anything like that. Identify the problem and fix the problem. Don't use this as an opportunity to try to score political points. I always like to remind my brethren in the banking trades that I can't remember a time the credit unions have ever crashed the American economy.
Yeah.
It's on my hand to name 5 times, in my lifetime that a bank has caused these types of issues. And we just wanted to set that reality. And we're always going to speak on behalf, not only of defense credit unions, but the entire industry when these scurrilous attacks come from the banking industry. If there's a problem, let's fix it. We should be the first one to stand up and say, you know what, here are the 5 changes that need to happen. Here's how we're going to do better. But there should not be an opportunity for the banks to come along and say, tax them, fill out their 990s, drag them in front of the entire industry in front of Congress and criticize them. The fact is that credit unions provide an incredible service, whether they be the size of Navy Federal or they be the smallest credit union you have out there in your community. And by the mere fact that nearly 146 million Americans are members of credit unions, we must be doing a very good job.
Well said, and one of the things I do, not a lot of people do this, I don't think, but I go back through IG reports, NCUA's IG reports, FDIC's IG reports. And when this broke, I had a banker make a comment on one of my posts, that's credit unions being credit unions. And it's like, well, hey, you forgot to look at the October 2025 FDIC report where Pulaski Savings Bank had a $28-30 million loss because they had two sets of books, right? And they were only 45 million. So that was actually a bigger asset percentage loss. They weren't on the books, just like the deposits weren't on the books at Jackson area. So if you live in Glass House, don't throw stones. And they need to look at how that happened. NCUA needs to look how this happened. And like you said, what are the solutions? How can NCUA make it better? Should they take a request to Congress on changing the Federal Credit Union Act on the asset level for CPA opinion audits, which is a very political charged thing to touch? But I mean, there's things that will be looked at NCUA, looked at individual credit unions should look at it saying, okay, what happened there?
Correct.
What are my internal controls? What do we want to do? And, maybe you're at 450 million in assets and you decide to get a CPA opinion audit. I think a lot of $450 million credit unions probably do that. And they're not required to, but it's a better audit.
No, I agree with your statement. And I think it's important that, every credit union CEO, and or most importantly, every credit union board member and board of directors, takes a look at the issues that have been uncovered already at Jackson and say, what are we doing different to ensure that this doesn't happen? And if there were policies in place, but nobody followed them, then, what are we doing in terms of training? What are we doing in terms of attracting the right board members who are going to say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, and why does one person able to control the inflow and outflow of the credit union? Those are probably pretty good questions to ask. And I think we need to hold ourselves to the higher standards, because if we don't and we lose the trust of our members, they're going to walk with their feet and they're going to go somewhere else.
You got it. Well said. Well, we've touched on earlier, the expansion of DCUC, but if you could kind of walk through that a little bit. I know you don't have to be a fast started credit union. And your growth is, I see every once in a while, today you got a new member, tomorrow you get a new member, and that seems to be taking off. Can you kind of talk through, if someone is listening to this and they're thinking, hey, how do I join DCUC? How does that work?
You can reach out, go to dcuc.org, and just click, and there's a form for you to ask questions about membership. And you're 100% right, Mark. You don't have to be a quote unquote defense credit union to be a member of DCUC. We have veterans as part of it. We call it our field of membership. The Department of Veterans Affairs a few years, did an analysis and said within every zip code within the United States, there's a veteran. So, we're of the same belief. In every credit union across this country, there's a veteran or an active duty service member or a relative of a member of the military. And as I said earlier, the issues that impact us impact every credit union. We just have that additional expertise. Like one of our newer members, we got a phone call and they said, hey, we've never done a VA home loan before. Can you help us? What forms? It's like, right, they're a new member, so we were happy to do that. And, we're happy to work with him. We just had a new member come on board because they were expanding their field of membership to cover, National Guard within their state because nobody else was covering them. And they're adding 2,000 or 3,000 members because of that. They just got approved by the state to include them into their field of membership. And one of the benefits, and I know everyone looks at the bottom line, we cap our dues. The most that any credit union, and I'm talking Penn Fed, that type of size credit union you can pay is $22,500. And the vast majority is less than $1,000. And because we don't want to have membership dues be the reason we exist. We exist to serve our members. And thankfully, we raise the vast majority of our funds elsewhere, to be able to support our efforts. And we hadn't raised our dues since 1996 until last year.
Wow.
The members voted by over 90% to double their dues to be able to be more proactive, to hire me, and to have a more robust advocacy team, which we're expanding into regulatory advocacy, because we need to be able to support our members as they come to us with their questions and asking for help, not only over at the Department of War or the VA, but also at the CFPB, the NCUA, and at every all 535 members of Congress and throughout the executive branch. So if anybody's interested, it's an incredible opportunity for you to become part of a team that we really believe it's access. If you ever need to get a hold of me, every single one of our members has my cell phone. Every single one of our members has our CEO's cell phone. You can get a hold of us. I appreciate phone calls after midnight, but if you need help, we're there for you because it's truly mission oriented for us. And we will do whatever you need to help you get the rules, the regulation, the laws in place for you to serve your members. So long soapbox way of saying everybody can join in DCUC. You are welcome. You don't have to be on a military base. I think we just added 3 new members in the last 10 days. That have come. We have teacher credit unions, we have firefighter credit unions, we have oil and gas, we have all the way to your traditional. I'm on to Andrews Federal Credit Union and Andrews Air Force Base. There is a home for every credit union at DCUC.
That's fantastic. And the last question I've got is conferences coming up. So you talk about being members. I know you guys do a lot of conferences. Anything exciting? So what's coming? What's the arc of that?
Well, we've got
at your fingertips, but if you do, what's coming up here second half?
No, we actually will have our annual meeting. It's August 3rd through the 6th down in Adventura, which is Miami. We purposely book to find the most affordable place. So if it's in the summer, we're going to go to the warmest place.
Just like NCUA used to do. Prices in Florida in the summer. Yep.
Right. And this year we trimmed a day off of it. So we're trying to pack everything in there. So to be mindful of people's travel time and the costs that are related to it. We have a very, we do have a strong military theme as part of our speakers. Former U.S. Senator, I can't remember her name, from Arizona. She was the first Air Force fighter pilot.
Me too. Yep.
Yeah, and then we're having one of the fire captains who was in the towers on 9/11 is going to be there. It's about leadership. It's about passion. It's about emotion. We present our gala awards for into our Hall of Honor. But what's really different than a lot of the other annual meetings or National Trade Association events that you'll go to is it's really a sense of family. Because coming from the military, which a lot of our members do, or coming from credit unions with a sense of service for who they represent, it's really like a family reunion. And I didn't believe that until my first time. And it really is. And it's like long friendships. You get reunited with people. We also have a sense of service. We do a golf tournament beforehand where we raise money, not for us, but for specific charities. This year's, I believe it's the USO, or we'll raise funds for. But we also have something that's kind of exciting. We call them our sub-councils, where in a region like Texas or the Northwest, or we'll be launching more of them, or the Midwest, where it's just those credit unions from that area where you can drive in, and it's a smaller, intimate, where we talk about issues that we're facing. Where if you can't get to the annual meeting or you just don't have that travel budget, we're going to come to as close to you as possible. Our next Texas sub-council is in El Paso, so we try to go to where you are and ask, what do you need to hear? What do you need from us? We try not to make them as we're here to raise money off you. We want it to be about, what do you need to become better credit union leaders? We've expanded our breakouts, something that we just started last year as part of our annual meeting, where we talk about the issues that are facing credit unions. We just had in March in San Francisco is CU Unplugged, where we bring in tech people and you sit and you build apps and you build where there's no agenda other than you guys bouncing ideas off each other and solving problems for credit unions. So I think it's something that you have to experience, but once you do that one time, you'll never regret either joining DCUC or coming to these events, because you'll meet people that we used to have a saying, well, growing up, that I may not help you commit the murder, but I'll help you bury the body. You're going to get those types of friends that you'll meet at DCUC.
Good. And as always, Jason, I've had a lot of fun chatting with you. You mentioned if someone wants to join, to go to the website. If someone wants to get in touch with you, I don't want you to give your cell phone number out over the wires here, but is that the best way for someone to reach out?
You
Or
can
want
go
to
to
reach you?
reach me. You use my email address. It's open. It's all lowercase letters, JSTVERAK at DCUC.org. And I'll happily answer any questions that you all have. And if it's not under my area, I'll connect you with the team that we have. We're a small and lean team, and we punch above our weight, but we do that because we have incredible members, and we'd love to have more of you join.
Yeah, small and lean means that you're nimble. You can move quickly
That's
in bigger
exactly right.
organizations, right? So
Absolutely.
that's the NCUA advantage in some instances compared to bigger agencies. Awesome. I'm going to put your email address in the show notes. Jason, I want to thank you for your time today and sharing your wisdom with my listeners and watchers.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for everything.
You got it. And listeners, watchers, I thank you for watching. I hope you'll do the same again soon. This is Mark Treichel signing off with flying colors.